Hello and welcome to the York Creatives Podcast. My name is Ben Porter, and each week you can join me as I chat to someone from York's creative community. This week's guest is Greg McGee. Greg is the co-founder of the contemporary art gallery According To McGee, based on Tower Street opposite Cliffords Tower. Along with his wife Ails, they exhibit innovative, independent art that defies cliche, selling to art collectors across the world. In this episode we discuss the changing landscape of York's creative scene during the 16 years since the gallery has opened. We get into what Greg and Ails look for when searching for artists to support and exhibit, as well as the work they do through their charity, New Visuality, to support people from disadvantaged backgrounds to develop their creative voice. Greg, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Me too. So there's plenty of things I want to ask you about, but before we get into the art, I've heard a rumour you can speak Russian. Is this true?
Da, я говорю по-русски очень большой. I spent a year in Kiev, and at the time, Russian was their standard language. And it's a great city. This was in the mid-90s, and I learned the lingo.
Not an easy language to learn, I imagine.
Teesside is a lot harder. But seriously, Teesside and Russian lend themselves to each other. It must be something to do with the guttural vowels and the hard consonants.
Okay. Has it ever come in handy when you're selling art, being able to speak Russian?
Yeah. I've been at networking events. You might have known I've been on a BBC One programme. Ails and I sell paintings in our gallery. We've met a lot of Russian people. And it's good to break the ice because a lot of these people don't expect to hear Russian abroad.
So tell me about the gallery. When did you set it up?
Before I answer the question, can I take this coat off? It's hot stuff.
Of course
Will
you can.
Get edited out?
Yeah, I can edit it out. Well, it might be a bit weird if your coat's suddenly gone.
Okay, well, I'll just do that, yeah.
I'll put some nice music on as you take the coat off.
Ails, McGee and I opened the gallery 16 years ago. We used to always go to St. Ives or Saint-Germain or Barcelona, and we would walk out of our way to find these idiosyncratic, independent little galleries, and we loved it. Whenever we came back to York, we could never find them. So Ails had this great idea. She said, why don't we open a gallery? And there you go. Yeah.
And what were you both doing at that time in your life?
Ails was head of art at Huntington School, one of the top comprehensive schools in the country, I'll have you know. And I
went there.
Yeah,
just for sixth form though.
She mentioned she knew you. I was teaching English, and it was love over a coffee stained staff room. You know, our glances met at the photocopier, and we started dating, and we would travel, and then whenever we came back to York, there was a contemporary gallery-shaped hall in the city, and it was her idea. She said, let's open one.
So tell me about York at that point in time. Obviously, I've only been in York 10 years. What was it like in 2004?
I mean, York's always been a great city from the get-go. Very few cities possess such a complex continuum all the way back to the Celts, to the forward-thinking, progressive future. 16 years ago, it wasn't quite as progressive as it is now. The cafes were there, but they were disparate. City Screen was there, Borders Bookshop was there, but it didn't have the festival vibe. It didn't have the Aesthetica Short Film Festival thing, or the Mediale vibe, or the York Design Week magic. And the cafes were much, much more dispersed. Now it's a lot better. I mean, I think as a city, you can go Duke for Duke with any other contemporary gallery in Europe. But what York has that a lot of cities don't have, it straddles both worlds. It's got the heritage and history and the future. And I think that's why we thrive as an art gallery.
So tell me about some of the work that you sell in the gallery then. What is it you look for in the artists that you exhibit?
Ails and I are art collectors. So whenever we see any work that we like and that we think we couldn't live without, we always nod and say, let's exhibit this. There's a lot of work that isn't for us. And that's not to say it's not excellent work. There's a lot of glorious work that we wouldn't exhibit simply because that's not our gallery. If it avoids cliche like the plague, and if it possesses something that reflects the here and now, we think, yeah, it's a no-brainer, let's get that work on the wall. More and more, we're looking for contemporary painting. So we're looking for artists who can paint, wriggle and sing with the violence of their mark making, or the control of the composition.
So I guess you've got to have a tremendous trust in your own taste that it's going to sell.
Absolutely, yeah. The worst thing we could do as a gallery is second guess the industry and say, well, this is what our clients will like. No, you can't do that. You know, you fall and die on a sword that isn't yours. The work that we show reflects our tastes, and we have enormous respect for our own tastes. Whether that's pop art or painting or neon art, it reflects what we like, which is why, to be fair, we're called According to McGee. It leaves us no wriggle room. You know, this is the sword this is the hill that we will die on, because, you know, we've chosen it this way.
Speaking of hills, you got a beautiful view out of your window.
Cliffords Tower.
Yeah.
It is a beautiful view. You know, looks like it's like Teletubby land with a castle plonked on top. And it is York's second most recognisable landmark, but I actually think it's the most recognisable landmark because it's like nothing you've ever seen anywhere else. It's, you know, we always say we're opposite Cliffords Tower, the green egg with a castle plonked on top. We've been there for 16 years. We've seen the daffodils come for 16 years. We always just say that's where we are, and people come and find us.
So coming up soon, we've got the whole Castle Gateway redevelopment of getting rid of the car park, putting in a new plaza type thing. How do you think that's going to impact the area and the city?
We would benefit hugely from anything that revitalises the area. I think, you know, I'm not deep enough, or I'm not plugged in enough on citywide decision making to see what's gone on, but there is a stagnation going on, and a lot of people are complaining about lack of space for their cars in the actual spaces.
Is it crap car park?
Is it? Well,
Yeah,
you
it's
say it.
terrible.
I'm not going on record saying that. You're brave. You see, you're younger and
I think
punkier
everybody
than I.
knows it's a crap. You're all lucky because you've got a parking space behind your gallery, so you never have to park in it.
I've noticed that. Yeah. Well, you know, 10 years ago when I was wilder, I might have said it was a crap car park, but now I'm much more diplomatic.
I don't think anyone at the council will be offended if I say it's a crap car
Okay,
park.
good. Well, bring it on.
Anyway, moving on from this point. Yeah, what about the plaza then? What do you see happen? What kind of cultural activity will happen there, do you think? What would you like to see?
Yeah, the outside brings the best out in people, and as a gallery, we would be so much less of a hidden gem than, you know, the gallery that you can see when you put your pink picnic blanket out underneath Clifford's Tower. If they were to pedestrianise Tower Street, that would be a dream come true. It's a noisy, in many ways, unnecessary street. But yeah, the plaza would be great. Anything that brings in the continental vibe would be awesome.
Running a gallery, you must obviously come across quite a lot of misconceptions about galleries. What do you think they are, and what would you say to those people?
One of the worst things to think that it is a place for elites and elitism, and it isn't. You know, it's an art gallery. There's a door, you walk in and you enjoy the work, and then you either purchase a piece or you say bye and come back later on and enjoy the art for what it is. There's also another misconception that just because everybody can create something beautiful doesn't mean that it's art, or that all art can belong in the same gallery. You know, we have certain parameters as to what we do as a gallery, and we're quite rigorous with that. And, you know, somebody might come in with a wonderful piece of photorealism, and I adore photorealism. It takes a great skill, but it just doesn't belong in the kind of contemporary vibe that we give in our gallery. So the more galleries a city has, the better. And, you know, York's doing all right. It's doing good.
Who have you had recently in the gallery?
Our biggest sellers have been Horace Panter, the bassist from The Specials, everybody's favourite ska punk band. Horace is awesome. He's recognising now that things like the Walkman, which turned 40 last year, the Sony Walkman is 41 now, it's unbelievable. The Walkman is now an item of heritage. It's a piece of nostalgia. And so he elevates it into a kind of Warholian pop art affair, and they've connected beautifully well. He leads on the cassette culture. People of a certain age remember what it was like to record the top 40 on a Sunday, press pause to crop the DJ's voice out, go over in biro what you've previously recorded. There was a whole ritual and pageantry to recording on cassettes, and Horace has nailed that beautifully. So in terms of pop art, Horace Panter is the man. With seascapes, which are increasingly desirable for our clients, David Bournemouth, Freya Horsley, Georgie Britton, Julia Poulton, Amrik Varkalis. Great painters, great names, great work.
So how do you stay creative yourself? How do you stay creative?
How do I stay creative? It's funny being creative and running a gallery at the same time. I always say it's a bit like if you love coffee and you open a cafe, you soon stop drinking coffee. Which isn't to say that I don't stay creative. I do draw really weird men holding eggs because that's what make I love that kind of crack. However, it's been a long time since I've picked up a paintbrush. That's simply because my muse has been killed by running a gallery. That comes accompanied with business rates and the rent and the percentages and stuff like that. So my creative outlet is either reading or drawing bald, ugly men holding eggs.
Why eggs?
Why not? Eggs are the new rock and roll.
Okay. What about rock and roll? What about music?
Rock and roll's great. Art should be provocative, but I always say a good piece of visual art should be provocative after you've seen it. It should make you go, wow. It should engender in you enthrallment, and it should bring forth a generosity of spirit. By that, I mean, you should say, I could never do that. And then afterwards, think about it and let it percolate down and maybe agitate it. That's what visual art can do. Music, however, can kick you right in the viscera right there and then, and can either make you dance or bang your head or throw your fist or march or take the knee. So punk and rock and roll, techno, house, it's all in very healthy stuff. I sometimes think visual art shouldn't try and straddle that world. Visual art, it's got a different job to play, a different job to do.
So as well as the gallery, you also run a charity, New Visuality. Do you want to tell me a bit about that?
New Visuality is the charitable arm of our gallery. So we work with vulnerable people. We work with young people who've got learning difficulties or physical disabilities. We work with people who've experienced homelessness or poverty. And we find for them innovative, experimental, creative experiences. And then we exhibit the work that they create. The worst thing that we could do is treat it as if it was parish art and patronise them and say, that's nice, well done. A lot of the work is wonderful. We won a Culture Award in 2016, I think it was, for projecting the work of these young people. We created an interface that allowed the young people to join the Twitter sphere, so they could join social media. And then we got what they tweeted and made them into slogans that we then pulsed as light into the black night of Cliffords Tower. It's great.
So why is it important for people to engage with that? What's sort of some of the feedback you get from people who are involved in these programs?
Creativity is more than a security blanket. It's a lifesaver. I know that from my own history. Anybody who think they can live in a world without art really needs to readdress their sensitivities and sensibilities. And a lot of these young people who have been denied a voice for all of their life, art gives them a voice. Creativity gives them a voice. And some of their stories are the most gorgeous, complicated, listenable stories you will ever hear. But it's only creativity that can give them that filter.
So what were you like as a young person? What was little Greg McGee like?
My childhood was pretty rounded. I was well brought up. Australia and then Middlesbrough. So for one minute I was like Tom Sawyer in the wild, and then I was parachuted into the Bronx. I discovered Tintin, Hergé's Adventures of Tintin. That was the safety net that saved my life. Tintin and his world of surrealism and vibrant flat colour and clean black lines and eccentric characters. When I got older and I saw my friends get seduced by more pedestrian pleasures and they turned up for school hungover or stinking from the previous night, I'd already been warned at some point by my love of culture, and I'll use Tintin as an example, that the road that those guys are on only goes one way. And, so by the time I was 16, I started watching Monty Python for the first time. I thought to myself, I've seen this already in Tintin, the eccentricity and the joy and the vibrance. So, yeah, I was very, very sensitive to colour and happy culture. I'm going to start filling up now. This is like Tony Soprano and Dr. Melfi.
Yeah, I'll let you have a drink of your wine. Just for context, so people don't think we're recording on the usual Monday morning when I do my podcast. It's actually Friday afternoon. Spark is open. The sun is shining. It's very warm in here, I have to say. It's a big metal box which is heated up in the sun. So if either of us look a bit sweaty, then I apologise. That's my fault for dragging Greg here on a warm Friday afternoon. So what's coming up in the gallery? What can people look forward to?
We experienced lockdown like everybody else. And we were going to celebrate our 16th birthday with a huge happening that included neon light and performances and installations and events that spilled out into the street. And that didn't happen. And in a sense, I'm pleased it hasn't, because it gave Ails and I room to distill our mission, which is painting. And so for now, for the next 5 years, I think we're just going to focus on contemporary painting. Ails has returned to the easel. She's picked up the paintbrush and she's come up with a collection of work that reflects the borders, the Scottish borders, the land in which she grew up. And they've all sold. So we're vindicated, you know. I always say if it's by the people, for the people, and it connects in art, well, you're doing something right. So we're going to stick with that, I think, and just make sure that is the road we're on.
So how have things been since lockdown? Since you've had the gallery back open again, you know, have people been coming in? Has it been a steady stream, or has it been quieter than normal?
We're open once a week, and that will change, but at the moment we're open once a week for all kinds of reasons. Psychologically, I couldn't go back to sitting in that gallery every day for a week. I just couldn't. It's like Shawshank Redemption, but without the sisters. You know, it's like a prison sentence. So the Saturdays are great because we get dolled up and we go and we sell work. The paintings that we're selling at the minute, like I say, are all optimistic, contemporary seascapes with a little sliver of light on the horizon. And the seas can be black and restless and full of bitterness and brine, but there's positivity in there. There's a light. And I think for one reason or another, and I'm not deep enough to work it out, it reflects people's aspirations at this weird, dark time.
So what are you excited about that's coming up in York at the moment?
Like I say, York's great. It's a city, isn't it? Every day I get out of bed, you know, I run an art gallery. That's not a job. I don't clock in or clock off. I've got this gallery to maintain, and it's a blessing and an honour. I love it. We go for coffee. We always go to the Independence. We go for lunch. Again, Independence. When the weather's right, it's great. When it's not, it's as cosy as anywhere you'll find in New York. I'm really looking forward to, on a wider level, I'm really looking forward to York Design Week. I've been looking at the artists that have been involved. They've just released their brief this week. That's going to be awesome. Mediali returns. That's going to be awesome. Anything that makes York look, anything that reminds people that York isn't Beamish, or it isn't a fossilised museum, and it is indeed a relevant, thriving city, is great. And all of these things, the independent cafes and the festivals, do that better than anything.
Yeah. It's important that we kind of cherish the live culture element as much as the sort of dead historic culture. Remember that was something Mike Kenny said when there was the whole thing about the Arts Barge years ago being called a vanity project. Mike Kenny came out and had this great quote about people in York putting down live, living, breathing culture that's here for people now, and favouring its sort of dead culture that you look at in museums. And we really do need a balance between the two. Yeah.
One doesn't need to subordinate the other. You can straddle both worlds. And I do really think that's York's great raison d'etre. That's its USP, that it can hit you with heritage and hit you with the future at the same time. We as creatives are standing on the shoulders of giants. You get Diane Wilcox and Janet Barnes, Ryan King, Charles Cecil, all of these great creatives that have caused ripples and made it easier for the rest of us to get on and do things.
So are there any local young artists that you're really excited about at the moment? Yeah,
it's funny. Young artist is a funny term because often people think young means, you're 20 or thereabouts. Whereas in fact, young can mean, you're 60, but you pick up the paintbrush for the first time and start creating something game-changing. That's a young artist. So we've got artists really who deserve more recognition. People like Richard Moulton, Adele Carmazin, Rachel Bedford. They're all on Instagram. Find them. And we hope to exhibit their work too, because, the best litmus test of a city's fettle is how it treats its young creatives. And York does really well, but we as a gallery are kind of obliged to jump in on that.
So if people want to find out a bit more about you, maybe they want to come and have a chat, what's the best way for them to do that?
The website's great. You can DM us on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. You can contact us through the website, or you can pop in. We're opposite Cliffords Tower, York's most recognisable landmark. So pop in and just say, this is the kind of work I create. What do you think? we're always pleased. And like I say, I overuse this word honoured, but we're in such a blessed situation to be able to help young people. And if we can give anybody a hoggy up, that's great.
Well, I think that's a perfect place to end. So thank you for being on the podcast, Greg.
I've absolutely loved it. Thank you for the wine. Next time, bring a fan. I'm melting over here.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.